Hello, everyone. My name is Mary, and welcome to Now Try It with Wine.
And I'm Abby, her other half.
I know I said it weird, but we're just going to have to move on. Today we're divulging into the topic of fortitude and resilience. We're going to talk a little bit how it represents in our culture, and then what it means to us, and maybe some growth opportunities for all. Since me and Abby both talked about wanting to fortitude our minds. Did I use that right? Or did I use the wrong conjugation?
Fortitude is a noun.
Fortify.
Fortify. There you go.
We're going to fortify our minds. See that growth already happening. We're 5 seconds in and I'm already blowing my mind. So to get it started, we're going to do a couple of icebreaker questions. So Abby, who was/is your role model for fortitude or resilience?
To be honest, I don't know if I have one.
Oprah.
Okay, well, with the exception of Oprah, but like with any of my family or just people I have relationships with, I don't know.
Your mom's a tough cookie.
Yeah, she is, but I think she's more like me. Like she internalizes a lot of things and she'll keep her feelings to herself. Of course, she's going to vocalize if you're not doing something right, especially when it comes to her kids.
Yeah, like any parent.
But when it's like something internal, she really doesn't vocalize it.
Yeah, her own.
And an example that comes to mind is when my grandfather passed away. Like, she was of course, she was grieving. But I think she had to be mentally strong because it's
a lot coming at her.
Yeah, and it was unexpected, but she also had to deal with, the arrangements and, going forward, what was going to happen. So she had to be strong.
Well, she does have fortitude.
She does. But, with everything else,
You're thinking of more in, a personal,
yeah,
able to express themselves.
She doesn't go out of her way to seek help. Help with her feelings or try to unpacking them.
I get what you mean. The only person that I know does that, and it's, kind of my role model as far as, wanting to find a better path of doing this, has been my brother. He's the one who kind of got me started on even focusing on my own mental health and the importance of it. And he went to therapy long before I started. And I was like, well, he's crazy. So that makes sense. But I'm not crazy. So I don't need to do that. But I'm just playing. I didn't really think of it that way. I just kind of thought, well, he's in a place where that kind of healing he's open to that kind of healing. And I'm just not, because I hadn't even accepted that it was really even an issue at that point. So I think if I was going to think of someone who to me is exemplifying of somebody who's always striving to learn more about themselves and understand themselves and work towards a better balance mentally, I think of my brother, because he's the one who kind of got me started on it. Yeah, I think that covers it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a story or a person who you didn't know who inspired you to seek mental health, mental fortitude, or resilience? I read a lot of biographies and I like hearing people's stories. Tina Turner.
I knew you were going to say that.
Her story is amazing to me. I love it. I love what is a little annoying is that she has 2 different books that she helped write. The first one, she did it with a partner. And then the second one, I think she had someone else helping her, but she was the main voice on that one. The first book, when she wrote it, was specifically to get people to stop talking to her about Ike. She was tired of talking about him in interviews, and she was advised that maybe if you put it in a book or people can read it for themselves, they'll stop asking. So she poured everything into that particular novel about their relationship. The second one she did, it was a very different tone. And there's all of these conflicting, because I'm a psycho person who goes down a rabbit hole. There's all these conflicting stories from her about whether or not she even loved him, that kind of thing. And what I liked about her is that I identify with the fact that you can ask me today how I feel about my dad and it'll change tomorrow. There's always, she powered through it till she had to survive. And I think that's the main takeaway for me from her story, is the driving force to survive, regardless of through anything. I also think of my mom as that type of person who just, whatever comes at her, she's going to her goal is to survive. And that's what I really liked about Tina's story, is that her need to survive and her drive and her willingness to power through things. But I related so much to her story as how conflicting it is to be the victim of somebody, but not want to be the victim of somebody. And the varying of like, today I'm good with it, but tomorrow it'll be a bad day and I'm not so good with it. And how open she was about that throughout her journey. So there's no one else like...
for me, I don't know. Because again, I'm not like really into celebrity culture necessarily.
How about like a book story that inspired you?
I'm trying to think of all the memoirs I read, because I read a lot of memoirs.
No one's story spoke to you?
Well, can I think about it? Thank you.
Madam.
I think for me, because one memoir I read, it's called Crying in H Mart.
Ooh.
I don't know if you know what H Mart is. It's like a supermarket with basically Asian foods and snacks. So it follows this. She wrote it. She's a lead singer of a band. It's not really well known, but it's, kind of well known enough, called Japanese Breakfast. Their music's really good.
Yeah, don't look at me to know.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just telling you if you want to check it out on Spotify. But she wrote a novel, and she talks about her mother because she's half Korean, half white. And she's basically talking about her relationship with her mother. And when her mother was diagnosed with cancer, how the obstacles she went through in order to help her mother through this cancer diagnosis when she got really sick and eventually she died, and how she went through grieving and with her dad. And I think that one sticks out more in my mind because when you lose a parent, like I haven't lost a parent, but I could just imagine the mental toll it would take on someone, especially someone you have a kind of, I'm trying to think of the word. I don't want to say hostile, but this relationship where it's not good, but not bad.
Like a tension-filled relationship.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Like it's always teetering between, good and bad, and how she dealt with it and trying to go through it. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that she was the only daughter. So she was the one that was
taking the brunt of it.
Like her dad was there, but he wasn't really there because, he was just distraught, I could imagine. But yeah, I guess that would relate to it. I'm not.
Yeah, just something that was inspiring to you.
Yeah. Okay.
So in our culture, there is a lot of different representations for fortitude and resilience and different symbols that are more widely known in the Latino culture. So I kind of wanted to go through a couple of them since we're trying to be more Mexican.
I love my culture. It's just, again, I don't feel deeply connected to it because of
the language barrier
and how other people make me feel like I shouldn't be connected to it because I'm not full-blooded Mexican, or I'm not actually Latina enough. I don't know.
Yeah, I get faces when I have sour cream on my crispy taco.
Hey, sour cream's the shit.
It is delicious. It's not my fault those other people don't know how to live.
Anyways.
So the first symbol, and I think this is like anyone who's religious will relate to this one, which was the Virgen de Guadalupe. I really, what is it? The Pietà of her with Pietà.
I know which one you're talking about. It's the one with she has
Jesus in her arms after they take him off the cross.
Yeah, La Pietà.
It's something like that. It's gorgeous.
I'm pretty
sure. I think it's Bernini, right?
You know what? Let's Google it. Yeah, La Pietà. I think I'm pronouncing it right.
Nailed it. I nailed it.
Mm-hmm. You were saying about that?
I always think, I know that Mexican culture, like you think of her traditionally covered in roses and the big sunlight on the candles that we light all of our houses. But when I think of her, and I think in this context, I see that sculpture in my mind. And it's a beautiful, beautiful sculpture. I'm not sure who was the artist.
I think it's Michelangelo.
I love old
art. Classic art. Renaissance art.
I love the sculpture. It's just so beautiful. The crafting that they did on it. I'm looking at it. Yes, it is a Michelangelo. You know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of the ecstasy of something Teresa, Saint Teresa. That one was done by Bernini. The one where there's an angel who's pointing with the arrow and he's going to stab her into her heart. And it looks like she's in a state of like, you should look that one up. Okay. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Michelangelo knew what he was doing. But this one was really, really pretty. And I kind of think of that of like, she made the ultimate sacrifice. And as being like a mother myself, I can't imagine like what she must have went through watching that happen to her son. So I do think that that's a story of strength and like protection and guidance. I think that's what I think of the Latino cultures takes from her.
So the next one is la lucha, or the fight. The concept of la lucha embodies the spirit of resilience in Latino culture. It represents the determination to persevere and overcome challenges, whether they are personal, societal, or systemic. It symbolizes the strength to confront and triumph over adversity. I'm having a hard time connecting the dots between la lucha and resilience, but maybe it's because I am not well educated in what it actually is.
I really love boxing and wrestling in that arena, and I really respect what they put their bodies through, and like you getting your ass kicked and having the resilience in your mind to keep going anyways. And that's what I've always thought of when I saw the fights. I always love watching the fights because I think to me it's like the ultimate test of not only your body but your mind too, because you have to keep
going.
Yeah, you have to pull something out of you to keep going, and there's a lot of respect on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. I like how it honors grief and the need to carry on despite it, because I think we are such a passionate culture that we hold on to grief sometimes a little too hard. What do you think?
Yeah, and I also, because when I think of Dia de los Muertos, I think of still honoring your ancestors and the lives they lived. And maybe it does have to do with grief, but also
a
with
sense of history.
Yeah, it's history and moving on and honoring the dead.
I like that. I like that take on it. Folklorico dance. Folklorico dance is a traditional dance, a form that showcases the cultural heritage and resilience of Latino culture. There's a lot of symbolism in their dancing and a lot of interpretive dance. Through vibrant costumes, rhythmic movement, storytelling, it represents a resilience to persevere culturally and expresses joy and unity despite challenges. I really do think La Folklorico is a very beautiful dance, and there is a lot of symbolism in it. I can't remember the name of the dance where the man's trying to make this woman fall in love with him, and she's like rebuffing him at every turn, and I loved it. And I think that it's just another form of storytelling. I think the passing down culture, and I think that's what makes it a good symbol for resilience for Latinos.
All right. Next one is community support and solidarity. So in Latino culture, fortitude and resilience are often demonstrated through the strong sense of community and solidarity. The support and strength derived from close-knit relationships, extended families, and communal gatherings reflect the collective resilience of the Latino community. What do you think?
I think that we do collectively as a community have a history of overcoming obstacles and persevering. I think I always feel like in our stories, the way they're at least told to me is we're always the little guy going up against a Goliath. And that we're always somehow pulling it out of our asses.
Yeah.
What do you think as far as community?
I think if you have a good community surrounding you in any situation, you'll be able to go through those situations with a clear head.
Yeah.
At least I would think
so. For communal support.
For communal support, yeah. Because we all need support in one way or another. And I think that just... this idea of collectivity.
Yeah.
Right?
It lends to your fortitude because you can draw from it.
Exactly. Yeah. I was trying to find the right words.
I'm reading your mind.
Yeah. You do that a lot.
I know. I'm sorry. Oral, traditional, and storytelling. I don't know why I said it weird like that, so I apologize. The tradition of oral storytelling in Latino cultures plays a significant role in preserving the history, passing down wisdom, and inspiring resilience. Stories of triumph over adversity, resilience in the face of injustice, and the strength of community serve as powerful symbols of fortitude. Is there any powerful story that you can think of that inspires you? That's a family story.
Probably, because I know all the stories we've heard from Grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I guess, Grandma was also in an abusive relationship, and he eventually left her for another woman, and she raised kids as a single mother. She did have support from family, like her her parents helped raise her kids. And I don't know if I have any story necessarily about it, but just what she went through as a single parent kind of sticks with me. You know?
Yeah.
I can imagine it would be hard raising 2 boys and a girl.
Yeah, just
by herself, especially, you know, back then when there wasn't really much known about when raising kids was just simply, you know, you're providing them with food, clothes, and shelter.
Yeah.
Right?
And not understanding, not that they didn't understand it, but not having the capacity to give any more than that.
Because, and it wasn't thought about, because not like today where you do have to think about what your kids are going through mentally, what they're consuming, and who they hang around with, and especially with social media, raising kids.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, you really didn't have that.
Yeah. When I think of fortitude, I don't know if it really fits, but I guess it kind of does. I remember my mom telling me this story about when we lived in, I want to say Tennessee or somewhere else, where my dad kept borrowing against his paycheck before the money would even hit our account. So we were running out of food and there was no way for us to get food because as soon as she was waiting for payday and then nothing came because he'd already spent it.
Mm.
So of course she's got me and my brother hanging on her that she's got to feed. So she was able to get my grandpa to send her money. And so she walked because they didn't have money for gas. If they can't feed their kids, they don't have money for gas or anything for a car. And of course, my dad kept always taking off all the time, too. But she had to leave us with him so that she could go get groceries because she didn't trust him with the money to go get the food. So she left us with him and she had to walk. And I remember she was telling me that she went with her hand full of her money in one hand and like she had no idea where she was going. It was, I know now. We were in Italy. And I remember that scared her because she didn't speak the language and she didn't even know where the grocery store was. So she just started walking and she said a bus came and the driver, she was able to communicate with him where she was headed because he saw her walking. It was really hot and nasty outside. And so he was able to give her a ride. He didn't charge her to take her to the grocery store. And I want to cry. When she left, he had come back and gave her a ride home. And I remember my mom, like when she tells me the story, like I can see her visibly shaking, like she's back in that moment where you have 2 small children who you have to feed, and you're just gonna have to pray to God that someone's watching out for you, and you're just gonna have to go and do. And I know that if that bus had never came, my mom would have walked to that store to get us food and walked back to make sure that we were fed, and like she would have done anything, like what she needed to get done to make sure that we were fed. So I think like, and she's told us, I think she never told me the story directly. I heard her telling somebody else and how she kind of thought it was like a religious experience almost of like sacrifice and being rewarded for it. So I think
that's awesome. That's nice of that man. Bus driver.
He was with Jesus. Jesus took the wheel that day.
Yeah.
These representations of fortitude in the Latino culture are very rich in values and community. So I think they're a good way for us to kind of get this conversation started. But now let's get into the mental strength.
So, because there's a lot of words for fortitude and resilience, right? Mm-hmm. And when I was researching this, a lot of the words coming up was like mental strength or mental toughness, right? You're able to be tough in these situations, right? So mental strength, on the basic definition, is the cognitive and emotional skill of reframing negative thoughts and adverse circumstances. Being mentally strong or mentally tough helps us resist both internal and external influences that weaken our self-confidence and well-being. So, for lack of a better word, right? You're able to go through these situations without necessarily thinking of those negative thoughts or that something bad's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Or in those adverse circumstances. And I think for me, because it's really hard to identify like what exactly I want to work towards when building my own fortitude or my own mental toughness. Because on the outset, when I think of toughness, I just think like stoic, no emotion.
Yeah, armor.
Like no matter what comes at me, I'm not going to be reactive to the situation. I'm just going to, it's not going to affect me.
That's a big one for me, is that I think a sign of strength is a non-reaction. We got to look into that.
it's a not like a sign of strength, non-reaction, because I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I don't want to lead from emotion, but I know emotions are very indicative of what could be going on, right?
Yeah.
Something that could be going good, something that could be going bad. And why are you feeling those emotions? And I think we should all consider our emotions when we're going through these situations, right? But for me, because I don't want to go into that stereotype of I'm a woman, right? I'm doing women stuff. That's how women act. Women are emotional. I'm like, you know what? It's because of that. I don't want to feed into that stereotype. So I'm going to be emotionless.
Stoic,
I'm not going to react to it. You know, I want to think logically about the situation and not have emotion play into it. But I think that's where I'm struggling with is like, where do we draw the line from being tough and establishing fortitude within ourselves? Right?
Yeah, because I think I want to avoid being detached. I agree with you about being stoic and not showing my emotions very easily, but I don't want to come off or become detached in my efforts to protect myself, because I feel like that's where I've muddied the waters, so to speak, in my mental fortitude.
Yeah.
Is I'm starting to feel like I'm detaching myself from things and people without really addressing the issue. It's just as a defense mechanism. I'll immediately put up the wall and not really dig into why was this person unsafe? Can I make this person safe again? Or is it really an unsafe situation? Like, I'm not analyzing what's triggering it. I'm just allowing the walls to be built.
Yeah. So in this way, I want to introduce some strategies to build resilience within ourselves, right?
Ready. I'm ready for the strategies.
We could go ahead and go through these questions and you could think about them.
Got
and
it.
We'll discuss them. Learning from your past is the first strategy. And some questions are, what types of events have been most stressful for you? Where do you receive the most stress? Or when you think about it, it automatically triggers a reaction of, I guess, what is it called? Whatever, stress.
Causing an issue for someone I love.
Mm.
To me, that's a big one. If I'm willing to make sacrifices to my own mental health and my own well-being, if it saves someone else I know from experiencing either accountability for their own actions or leaning on them for support when something happens to me.
Yeah.
To me, it's almost like I'm willing to pay the price for myself, but I'm not willing to ask other people to share that price, even though there's probably situations where they should. That gives me a lot of stress because I don't want to cause issues.
Yeah. I don't want to cause issues either. Because when I think about it, I'm like, everything stresses me. But I think what stresses me the most is when I'm not perfect at something. Because if I'm not good at it the first time, I'm going to give up. I'm not going to go through with it, you know, because I have to be perfect. I have to make sure I know what the hell I'm doing. Especially with me being a teacher, I feel like there's just a lot of expectations when you're a teacher. Like, you're supposed to be this way and you're supposed to already have this figured out. When you're in the classroom, this is how you manage a class. And if you don't do this, then you're not a good teacher. And I want to be so perfect at it that it stresses me to the point where sometimes, yeah, I do want to quit being a teacher, right? Because I just feel like I'm never good enough.
Yeah.
Especially when I see, you know, if it's been a stressful day and the kids are acting wild and I cannot get control of my classroom and my kids are failing a test that we have gone over and, you know, their grades aren't looking too good and I'm trying to reach parents, but parents aren't, you know, being active in their kids' learning and I'm have tutoring hours and I'm trying to do all this. But if I'm not achieving that perfect mindset of what I think a teacher should be, like, oh, a teacher should be strict. Her classroom should be in order. Like, all the kids need to be seated with their pencils. There should be minimal talking. If they do group work, they should do group work and not have any outside distractions, right? That's how I see it. Like, there's a routine for everything, even sharpening a pencil. If I don't have those routines in order, then my classroom's going to be chaotic and I'm not the perfect teacher.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do want to quit, but I'm like, no. Most of it is because I need the money. But
that's what
also
keeps
because
us all at our jobs.
I just really don't want to go through the transition of changing a career, right?
It's hard.
It is hard. But I think other than career, it's with almost anything I do. Like, if I decide to pick up a new hobby, if I'm not good at it the first time around, I'm going to give it up. With my writing, if the story's not perfect, I'm going to give up.
So we got to figure out a way to keep powering through.
Yeah.
Maybe you could try affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's okay. We can keep going. We can fix this later. Like, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
All right. So have those events typically affected me? I guess we already...
Yeah, because you talked about that, how you'll be dissuaded from trying it at all if something isn't perfect. So it is affecting you.
Mm-hmm. Have I found it helpful to think of important people in my life when I am distressed? So do you find it helpful when you think about the people that you love? Maybe
to a certain extent, but maybe not in the way that it should. Like, I love these people, so I need to get my shit together. I need to perform for them. I need to achieve for them. I need to take care of them. I need to I think it's doing the opposite of what.
So it's being detrimental.
Yeah, because it's almost like when I'm thinking of mental fortitude, I'm thinking of I've pushed myself to the point of pure exhaustion. And then I want mental fortitude to kick in because I want to keep going past it's almost like I don't anime people out there. I love Dragon Ball Z. It's almost as if I'm Goku and I have pushed myself to the absolute limit of where I can go. And I keep pushing because I keep thinking that I'll achieve more with just a little bit more power, with just a little bit more mental fortitude, with just a little bit more sacrifice. I will be able to achieve it all.
Got it. Okay. And these are a long list of questions, so I'm going to read them. And if you want to interject, feel free.
Got it.
To whom have I reached out for support in working through a traumatic or stressful experience?
My counselor.
Okay. Me, again, it's very hard for me to reach out for support. But I feel like when I do, I usually come to you.
Yeah. And then I go to my counselor. And then I go to my counselor. I'm just playing.
You go to your counselor for me.
Yeah, and then I'll come back and
I have a friend.
I'm not going to say who.
What have I learned about myself in my interactions with others during difficult times?
The extent to which I disassociate. When someone's paying attention to me, like really paying attention to me in a moment of crisis, they've brought it to my attention things that I do, like blanking out or diving my nails into my palms or scratching at myself or that kind of stuff.
Just things that you don't realize you're doing it.
Right.
Got it. Has it been helpful for me to assist someone else going through similar experiences? Do you find that helpful or do you find that kind of triggering for you?
It's easy for me to disassociate what's happening with them to what's happening with me. And it's kind of been helpful just to see a different perspective. Okay. What about for you? Because I do come to you.
I'm trying to think. Like, I kind of think it does help me in a way because it makes me understand myself a little better, because when the stuff I tell you, I don't tell to myself. Right? So I'm like, that's some good advice, Abby. You should tell that to yourself more often. Right?
Yeah, you're a tough cookie when you're with talking to me about what I should do.
And I'm like, take your own advice, Abby. Come on. So, yes, I do find it helpful. Because I don't think about them. When I'm going to those situations, I don't think about what I should do.
Yeah, we don't think logically. Yeah. It's kind of like an autopilot.
So when I'm on the outside looking in, or like when you're talking to me about your problems and I'm giving you this advice or telling you what you do, I'm like, that's some good advice. You know? Have I been able to overcome obstacles? And if so, how?
I think asking for help. Because I have, like I told you, I have the tendency of pushing myself to the point of exhaustion. And when I finally get to a point where like, I can't take anymore, I'm going to lose it. And I finally reach out to my partner and I'm like, hey, I'm done. Like when you get home, it's a fucking mess. Like everything's a mess. My life is a mess. I just left it and ran. And he's like, okay, let me take care of it. And he picks up the baton. And like when I come home, the whole house is clean. So I think the biggest thing that's been able to help me overcome it is releasing some of like my control over everything and letting someone else step in.
Yeah. And also having someone to lean on that you could lean on. Like if anything were to go south.
Yeah.
Right? Which I'm still trying to find.
I'll show up.
Yeah, okay, you're the obvious one, but like I need at least one more person.
I get it. I think that's important to find in a life partner is someone that you can rely on that's in a little more intimate way, because we are we do hang out a lot and we do talk a lot, but there's a certain intimacy with a romantic partner that you're not going to get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. All right. And last one, what has helped me feel more hopeful about the future? What are you looking at me like that?
Because I think that's a good one for you.
Oh, that is a good one for me because I think about the future a lot. And to the point where very overwhelming. And I don't necessarily know, to be honest.
For me, it's when I feel the strength of my community. So like when something does happen and I reach out to people for help, maybe multiple people, and they all step up to help me, that makes me more helpful about anything coming towards me in the future, because I know if I needed someone, I have a network. And I think that that's really, for me, I always think that I don't have anybody else I can rely on. And then when I finally do reach out to people and they do step up and help me, like when I messaged you in the middle of the night and you started messaging me back, it made me feel like I was loved, because when I was going through something, it was important for you to message me back. And you did message me back until I felt better. And I didn't feel like, you didn't make me feel like I was burdening you with anything when I reached out. And I think that kind of like being able to test those connections and feeling the strength of them has kind of helped me. Okay, you're okay. It's going to work out. If something else happens, we can always call Abby.
Like she'll have your back.
Yeah, she'll help me fix this.
Okay. So the next thing, another strategy you could do to establish a resilient mindset is to be flexible. So a resilient mindset is a flexible mindset. How well do you adapt to certain circumstances, especially the stressful ones? And how do you maintain that flexibility, right? You could let yourself experience strong emotions and realize when you may need to put them aside in order to continue functioning. So allowing yourself, right, feeling those strong emotions. But when you need to function in those situations, you're like, okay, let me put them aside and let me deal with this in a more substantial way, right?
I think another thing that could help is like not thinking too far ahead. Like, I know that there's some times where...
Not thinking about the actions that are the cause and effect, right?
Yes.
Like, if I do this, this is going to happen. If this happens, then this happens. It's like a chain.
I don't allow... Like, there's some times where, like, I don't allow myself to do that, where a decision has to be made. So I'm just going to think about the decision at hand. And then if something goes wrong, then I'll address it. And just being flexible enough to know that I'm probably going to have to change course, and that's okay.
Yeah, I have the same problem. Because have you, like, you know those maps where it's like, did you do this? Yes, no. If it's no, have you? That's how it is in my mind, right? Because I have to look through all the possibilities and all the options before I could make an executive decision about something.
And it can be very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it.
Yeah, and it takes me a long time.
Me too. Or Robert just shuts down.
You could step forward and take action to deal with your problems and meet the demands of daily living, but also know when to step back and rest and re-energize yourself. Right?
Yeah, knowing the difference is the hard part.
You could spend time with loved ones who offer support and encouragement, also known as nurturing yourself.
Or listening to our podcast.
Yeah. And relying on others, but also know when to rely on yourself.
Yeah, it's a nuance. It's a balance. I think we should do an episode about that, exploring when to reach for help and when you got this.
And another way you could do it is like look for other places of help, right? Because maybe the support of your family and friends is not enough for you, but there's other things that you could use or other resources you could utilize.
Like a therapist.
Yes, exactly, right? Self-help community support groups. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of support groups out there for something that you're specifically dealing with.
Yeah, there's a lot of church groups will have it for people who are grieving over the loss of a child or a loved one. You just have to look. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of different organizations that are willing to help people who understand the importance of mental health and want to help.
Maybe reading books or other publications. If you're a big reader like us, like maybe look into something to help you build your mental strength in order to navigate the reality you are living in. Any online resources? I don't really use online resources too much.
I do like some YouTube videos, but again, if you're going to rely on online resources, properly vet your resources.
Yeah, make sure they're credible.
Yeah, they're coming from a credible source or have some kind of scientific research to back it up. And you will find a lot of very interesting articles out there from science journals, and you can even go on Google Scholar and they'll help you vet some of them as well.
Mm-hmm. And then another resource you could utilize, which Mary also mentioned, was a licensed mental health professional.
Yep.
Right, someone who is adept at dealing with these certain issues and knows what you should do to navigate it.
Yep.
All right.
So before we get into our round table, let's get to some wine.
Yay!
Now we're midway through. So the wine is aptly called Fat Ass. It's a sangria My brother actually got this one for me. I've been waiting for a special occasion to try it. So I'm going to read you the story of Fat Ass Ranch and Winery.
Oh, there's a story?
On the back of the bottle.
Nice.
It all started several years ago when we got married and found that perfect Texas ranch. Those 3 square meals a day sure were good. It wasn't long when we noticed our britches were fitting tighter. Even our old ranch dog was gaining weight and having a heck of a time jumping into the back of the pickup. One day when I'm having to slide the bottle around, so that's why I'm reading funny. One day we were out feeding horses. We noticed our donkey, Jackson, was as big as some of our horses. That's when we looked at each other and decided that we lived on the Fat Ass Ranch. Pairs well with Spanish rice.
Well, too bad we don't have Spanish rice.
I know. Let's give this one a shot.
Yeah.
It is a grape wine with natural flavors.
And I think I read it's like 13%.
Yep, it's kind of strong. And it was bottled in Louisville, Ohio.
I may have to take some of the water out of this glass.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I let the ice melt. I tried to peel some of it off.
It's fine. If not, then I could have a watered down version. It's fine.
Let's see. Are you getting any notes from the smell?
It smells like a sangria. I'm not well versed in, wine.
Oops.
I just know that wine gets you drunk.
Okay. This bottle can be fingered for listeners from last season.
Wait, what?
There's a little bubble at the bottom. We found out that was called fingering the wine. That the fancier wines do that, so this wine can be fingered.
I'm sorry. I learned something new today.
We gotta take a wine class.
Or I definitely need to do that.
A connoisseur class.
I feel so unsophisticated. I don't even know what fingering is.
Ooh, it definitely smells strong. I can smell the sangria. If you've had a sangria, it's a very distinct smell.
Ooh, I like it smooth.
It's very smooth.
Mm-hmm.
And you can definitely taste the grape, but it's not overpowering.
No, I like it. I would give this a 5 just because it's smooth.
Me too. How smooth it is. It's delicious. He told me I would love it too. I do. I think I found my new top. Now we're going into our round table discussion. So I'm sorry, you guys. The wine glasses, we're going to figure out a science to get it down so that we're not messing with the wine glasses.
I think we just need coasters, Mary.
Okay. I'll get coasters.
Okay.
That was so basic. I have a whole stack of coasters in that closet. I don't know where he put them.
Okay.
I thought I saw them there, but I guess not. Anyways.
All right.
So we'll do our roundtable discussion. I'll start there.
All right.
How do you respond to negative emotions or setbacks? Do you start thinking of solutions, whine about your bad luck, or let them roll off your back?
If I'm thinking about my negative emotions and start thinking about them, I don't think of solutions.
Me either.
I don't. I know that. I also don't whine about it. I just kind of internalize it and hope it passes. I don't know if that makes sense.
I get what you mean. I think I sit in it until something helps me get over it.
Yeah.
But I don't ever look for a solution, and it's not necessarily that I'm whining about it. It's more like I'm trying to find someone or something to make me feel comfortable with letting it go.
Mm-hmm. And I think it also because I don't have a outlet in order to express those emotions in a safe way.
Yeah.
Because every time I think about expressing emotions, I'm putting myself at risk all the time.
Yeah, someone hurting your feelings or I'm not saying the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's very disheartening when they say the wrong thing when you're going through something.
Because then it just validates everything that you perceived about yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well.
I feel like people have to be very careful with their words around me when my feelings are being hurt.
Mm-mm.
Because I'll interpret any little off-the-cuff remark as oh my God, you hate me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next question.
Can you share a specific challenge or setback you faced in your life that required you to tap into your mental fortitude? How did you manage to overcome it?
I specifically think about when I got my bachelor's degree in psychology and I had just finished coming off my internship. and I had helped out of the state hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and I hated it. I understand that mental health it's a spectrum, and the people who are at that hospital are not necessarily representative of the community at large. But try telling that to my 22-year-old mind, and I just thought I made a fucking mistake with my degree. Like I picked the wrong fucking major, that I screwed everything up. I just wasted the last 3 years of my life. I can't do anything with this degree.
I definitely felt that way. Yes.
And I just felt so pathetic for thinking that I could do this because the internship was hard.
I think for me, because I did go like with what you did, I did take a break from my bachelor's, like my undergraduate, for like a year because I was like, I think also you're bombarded with the message like, oh, you don't need to go to college to make a lot of money. And I was already pursuing a degree that really didn't pay anything. Like I couldn't get anything with it. So I'm like, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I really didn't. So I took a break and thought that was the best thing. I wanted to quit. Like I wanted to quit going to college. I wanted to do something else. Like I don't know what I had in mind, but I just didn't feel, I had feelings of unworthiness.
Yeah.
Right? So eventually I did go back for my bachelor's, and I did decide to become a teacher and, you know, went through the whole certification program.
What got you back into it? Because for me, it was like I forced myself to be open to new experiences and I talked to a lot of different people. I talked to my school advisor. I talked to a lot of different family members about what kind of path they took. I did a lot of research before I ended up finding out that there was things I could do that don't necessarily have to do with working at a state hospital with a psychology degree. But I think I got so caught up in my mind when I had a path in my mind of what I wanted to do, and then I hit the first major roadblock where I realized I was unhappy doing it. I think it caused like this existential crisis, and it pushed me into this, just like this, I guess, not knowing. Yeah.
Because I also didn't want to have a future where I didn't have anything to fall back on, right? And I imagine my future like I want to be financially stable. I want to eventually own my own house. I want to be able to pay all my bills. And I know teaching really doesn't pay a lot, but I started thinking, well, what could I do? Because I was pursuing an English communications art degree, right? Decided to scrub that off and just do English because I really do like reading. I really do like writing. So what could I do in relation to that? And I know the obvious answer is like teaching. I'm like, okay. And I think in the back of my mind, I didn't want to pursue it because of all of the negative feedback about teaching, or like everyone knows it's a thankless job. It's a hard job, unappreciative. Like you're going to be handling situations with kids and their parents, and you don't get paid a lot. It's not substantial. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking of all that. But I was like, well, it seems like a fun thing to be a teacher. Like back when I was a kid, I did want to be a teacher, and I was thinking, oh, I could do this with my classroom, like, because I was inspired by other teachers who had that effect on me, right? And good teachers, and I wanted to be that way. I wanted to be a good teacher and have my own classroom and teach kids and, make a connection with them. I think that's ultimately why I decided to go through with it. Mm-hmm.
You had to just go inward and see, remember your why.
Remember my why.
Like that, look.
I know, right? Sorry, it's fine. But yes, that's my why, people.
What strategies or practices have you found effective in building and maintaining your mental fortitude over time? I think the biggest thing that I've done that has helped me is allowing myself to feel a little bit more every time I sit with something. So, like, especially with the whole thing with my dad, I never really allowed myself to sit in one particular memory. It was more of just like I would remember the whole thing and not one particular instance. And especially the harder ones, sitting in it for a little bit longer every time I sat with my therapist about it. But then also being able to communicate. And I think that's enough for me right now. Recognizing when I've reached my limit and not pushed too hard too early. Because I think a lot of people, when they talk to me about the struggles they had about mental health, I think they think a counselor is going to wave a magical wand and fix all their problems and tell them how to fix everything. It's a lot of introspection that you have to do during the counseling process. And figuring things out at the right time. So when I think back on some of the conversations I had with her a year ago, I see things that I wasn't ready to see now in those conversations. So I think it's a process. It's different for everybody, and just being open to experiencing a little bit more and knowing my limits.
Okay.
What's been the biggest thing for you?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't have a therapist. So I feel like I don't have anyone to help me establish my own mental fortitude. And I kind of have to figure that out on my own.
I think you doing this podcast and forcing yourself to be vulnerable every time you record is helping you as far as just being more expressive.
Yeah, because that's a hard thing for me to do with other people, let alone broadcasting that to others.
Can I suggest something?
Sure.
Maybe figuring out what it is you need to feel safe and communicating that to somebody.
I know what I do need to feel. Like, I already know. It's reassurance. Like, if you reassure me that what I'm going through is valid and that I'm not burdening you with my issues and that you're just there to be a listener or just to be an outlet for me. And it's constant reassurance, right? I feel like that's what I need, because I need to know that you're okay with this. Okay, then I'm okay with it.
And I think that when you get to a point with someone where you want to let them in, just communicating the way you did with me, communicating that to them too, and seeing how they react. And if you feel comfortable with it, then move it, take it a little further.
A little further.
Yeah. Further.
Okay. Have there been any particular experiences or situations that have tested your resilience the most? How did you handle them, and what did you learn from those experiences?
Tested me the most. Honestly, the things that hurt me the deepest aren't even things that happened to me necessarily. Seeing my brothers going through any kind of pain is like my heart is being ripped out of my chest and someone's stabbing it over and over again with a knife. Like, I have this deep love for my siblings, even my sister. Like, seeing her cry is like heartbreaking to me. It's just, when I think about how I have to, like, when they're going through pain, I can't put my pain on top of their fucking pain. You know, I have to be respectful of where they're going through, and having to keep my emotions in check when I want to, like, tear the walls down has been very difficult and testing of me, especially when the person who's hurting my sibling is another person that I love or that I have feelings for or a relationship with that I don't want to affect, but I'm feeling like these overwhelming, like I said, like I want to, like, I would rip my own heart out and put it in them if that's what they needed. Like, when I'm going through that kind of level of, like, this heightened level of sensitivity and vigilance because they're in pain, and controlling my emotions on how I react to other people. Because I've noticed that if my brother's in pain, whether it's reasonable or not, whatever's causing him that pain is now my enemy, and I get really nasty with whatever's doing it.
And I feel like, because when you talk to me about, you know, you and your brothers and what you guys went through, you seem more like a protector, like, because you want to protect them. Yeah. But if you can't protect them from their own emotions.
Right.
But you could protect them from someone who hurt them. Right?
Yeah. But even as an adult now, I shouldn't be stepping in as much as I feel like I should be doing. And it's just been hard to, like, temper myself because I'm being triggered.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing has been to practice not doing everything every single time they call, and, like, only waiting for them to tell me that they want me to do something. So just sitting in it. And it's hard and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But talking myself through it, that they're okay, they're adults, they can handle this, they can figure this out. And if they need something, you'll always be here, right? And, like, just talking myself off the ledge so I don't hurt somebody. What about for you? What's been the biggest?
I'm trying to think of something more recent. I think for me, what tested my resilience the most was trying to find myself after leaving a almost 12-year relationship. Just because I had so much on this one person, right? Gone through so much, went through so much, that I didn't have my own identity in a way. I didn't know who I was. I just knew I was stuck in this position. Like, and I'm still trying to figure it out. And I'm glad, like, at this point right now, I'm comfortable with where I'm at. Although, again, and I've expressed this to you before, a lot of the issues stem from like what I imagine my future would be.
Yeah.
Before it was like, well, how am I going to get through this? Like, where do I go from here? And I'm glad I had my mom to fall back on, and I did talk to you about it. I'm glad I have you for support. But it was just, even dating, like going back into dating, right? It's kind of like you have your guard up because you don't want to feel too clingy because, it's your, first time dating. Like, you haven't dated since this person and you don't know what it's going to be like or how other people are going to react to it. But also not allowing myself the space to be okay with certain connections. Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does to me, just because you spoke a lot about worthiness in your connections with people. Mm-hmm. And it's you got a certain level of comfortability with this person and now they're gone, and it's an insecurity that's now being heightened because you're having to re-enter a realm where you once felt safety in.
But you also don't want to make the same mistakes you did.
Yeah.
So,
because it was a false safety. It wasn't a real sense of safety. And I think when I get where you're coming from, because I did something similar, but then I also watched my mom go through it when my dad and her split up, and just having to, because I think you can say this about anybody, we get used to a certain sense of chaos in our lives, and we normalize things we don't really want to, but we do it to survive. And then we forget that it's not normal.
Yeah.
And then when you finally come out the other side of it and you're having to reflect on how you got in this position,
it's like, well, why did I ignore all the signs?
Yeah.
Why did I put myself through that situation? Like, and that has occurred to me. Like, oh, why did I even stay with him that long? Like, it wasn't, and I think mainly I did it because I wanted someone. I wanted like some kind of thing to hold on to, like, oh yeah, we've been together for so long, but we're not married yet. Like,
I think you bought into it.
I bought into the idea of being in a committed relationship without it actually being in a committed relationship, you know?
And I think that's where my mom was at too. She had bought into the idea of, this is a family. We're a family. We're always going to be a family. And everything else was just background noise. And then when you get on the other end of it, where the decision was taken away from you, because she's not the one who left, my dad's the one who left. So when the decision was out of her hands and there was nothing left but for her to actually sit in it now, it's heartbreaking. It's like a death. It's like you're grieving something because now you're being forced to do what you didn't want to do in the first place. Mm-hmm. So I definitely think that your fortitude has grown.
Yay. I'm glad I'm making progress.
I'm going to kind of skip around here a little bit on our questions. How do you differentiate between healthy resilience and pushing yourself too far? That's been my biggest issue. How do you strike that balance about taking care of yourself?
And I think that's a point I was trying to make, like, well, not a point, but like something I do want to identify and try to work on. Like, how do I differentiate between being tough versus being,
cold? Or distant.
Or tough. But I think when I think of tough, like, again, stoic, no emotion, right? Tough and having mental fortitude. Like, where could we meet a balance?
Maybe we need to redefine what we call tough. Maybe that'll be like our first step to figuring it out.
Probably.
So, redefining it. I think I want an empathetic response, but I still want my mind involved. I feel like I don't want to lead with my heart and my emotions. I still want to have a balance in my reactions to things between that represents both. What's good for me and what's good for my heart.
Mm-hmm, but then you also cannot ignore your emotions.
Yeah. I think I want to balance it.
Yeah.
Like I do think that my emotions will lead me in the direction I need to go, but I don't want them to be the defining of how I respond. Like, so if someone were to hurt my feelings, I want to be able to say, ow, that hurt, and make a conscious choice to either put distance or fix the relationship, not a reactionary choice. Like I want to be able to acknowledge my emotions and still be able to communicate what I need and not just react purely based on emotion. I think that's what my definition of fortitude is. I want to be able to communicate better what my needs are, not only to people, but to myself, because I also think I have an issue of like, oh, that hurt. Let me just ignore it. Or let me move on and I'll fix it later, or never addressing it at all. Or I'll sit with it for days and I'll never address it with that person until weeks later when I've been sitting on it for like a month. Hey, remember that time you hurt my feelings like 4 months ago?
Yeah.
I want to talk about it now. I want to be better about trusting myself enough to read my emotions and finding more effective ways to communicate it without getting my feelings hurt and without retreating into my bubble.
I get that. I'm trying to think. I don't, because every time, like, I just feel like when I think of those high stress situations, I just tend to withdraw all the time and I don't want to address it. So
I think you and I have the same fear of like sitting in it is painful.
And I'd rather sit in it by myself. You know, I'll wallow in it. I'll cry myself to sleep at night. Right? So I think I still need to work on that.
It is kind of the same as me. You want to be able to communicate in a safe way your emotions and your feelings where you feel safe and it's being received safely.
Yeah.
What about 7?
I was going to do that one. Have you ever encountered moments of self-doubt or times when you question your ability to maintain mental fortitude? If so, how did you overcome those doubts and regain confidence in yourself?
I don't think I'm good at that. I think that when I have moments of self-doubt and I still need to get shit done, it turns into a survival mode and not really a deal with it mode. Like when, let me think of a time. Well, like I'll go back to the college analogy when I really doubted, because then if you're not going to do psychiatric through the hospital, then you obviously can go private practice. And I was like, I am a total fuck up. Like I just haven't been able to I haven't had a clean conversation with my dad in years. My mom and my relationship was extremely strained. And I felt like a whore for living with my boyfriend unwed. So I was like, who the fuck am I to help somebody go through their mental shit?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't even have my own life figured out. And how I'm going to help advise somebody else in their life. And like, I just thought of myself as this weak, pathetic person who is constantly allowing life to run her over. And I didn't see how I would be able to help anybody by becoming a psychiatrist. And then more recently, after talking to my therapist, and like, I make it a point to be as honest as possible in my sessions, where even if I don't want to say it, I just say it and sit in what I was thinking. And I'm finding out about myself that I'm not as unhealthy as I wanted to think I was.
You're just giving yourself that mindset that you were.
Yes.
Because of what you experienced, right?
Yeah. And she kind of helped me see that the reason why I don't really find a lot of people who see things the way I do is because people don't tend to see things as clearly as I do sometimes. And I think because I've had to be hyper vigilant growing up about other people's emotions and thinking ahead and survival mode from very young age, you know, that I think I have an ability to read the room and understand people's I think I've always been psychoanalyzing people since I was little and understand, because it was a matter of survival for me to understand what was causing my dad to feel the way he was and act the way he was. And the same with my mom to a certain extent, you know, to avoid being hit or called names or some kind of repeat trauma. You had to kind of understand where they were coming from. So like I would get to a point where I would think ahead as to, let's say, I don't know, my dad came home in a shitty mood. What are my things that I know about him that he likes? What can I do to address that? Or what do I think is causing the anger? Can I fix that? Like just hyper analyzing every situation that was thrown at me, that now it's like second nature as an adult, which would be something that's very reliable and useful for a psychologist. I just had to trust myself that even though it was a shitty experience, I was able to get things from it that were good.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I've experienced countless moments of self-doubt. in countless moments where I questioned my own abilities because I didn't think I was good enough in anything. But I think what really helps me is, again, reassurance from other people. And actually, too, that stick out in my mind this school year, I wouldn't say it's major, but it was a situation which, again, if I handled it the way, I was supposed to, it wouldn't have become this huge deal. But it happened at work, and I was, of course, feeling like I wasn't a good enough teacher. And, I didn't want to go to work. I was crying. Like, I had to leave work the Thursday before spring break because I couldn't hold it in because even the kids were noticing. Like, I had one girl coming. She asked me, "Miss, are you sick? Because it looks like you're crying." And I was like, okay, that's a sign I need to go home. Like, if I cannot handle it. Like, I cannot be composed in front of these kids right now. So I think what really actually helped me was my coworkers. And I'm glad that the other teachers that I work with, that they are supportive. Like, I could be working at other schools and other teachers wouldn't give a shit what you're going through as long as it helped their numbers go up, right? But at my school, everyone's always trying to help you, right? Especially if you're a new teacher because, well, teachers are needed. So I'm glad that I had my coworkers to lean on, right? And I was able to be vulnerable and cry in front of them, even though I didn't want to because I was angry at myself when that happened. Like, why the fuck am I crying?
Right? Get your shit together, girl.
Yeah, and I was trying so hard. But, once the emotions are in and once this situation, the overthinking and overanalyzing sets in, I just cry. So when I would explain the situation, vent my frustrations, and it's more of like, and it's not invalidating to me when someone says, "You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And we will support you through this," right? It's not like they're going to leave you there in the cold. They're going to support you. Yeah. Like, whatever you need. If you need a break from a period, we'll help cover your class. If you need to step out for a bit, I'll watch your class. It's just those little things that help me, that know that, okay, I'm in a supportive environment that wants to see me succeed.
Yeah.
Right? That was one instance. And again, very grateful for that because I probably wouldn't have lasted after spring break. I probably wouldn't have, to be honest. Another one, and I think I told you this, I don't know, is when I started dating this guy, right? The new one I'm talking to. And we went on a date and we went to the rollercade. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
And it was adult night, so there were no kids.
Thank God.
But I haven't been roller skating in years. So I was thinking in my head, oh, I'm going to be badass at this because when I did it when I was a kid, I was awesome. I was an expert. Like, I knew how to do
Olympic
it.
level.
Yeah. But, as an almost 30-year-old, it's like, okay, I need some work, right? So I'm glad I tried it. We did like maybe 2 songs, but I was honestly like wobbly. I kind of look like when the baby horse comes out of the and she's like trying to wobble. That's how it looked like. And when he asked me, "Hey, you want to stop?" I'm like, "Yes, let's go ahead and take a break." And because I was thinking, well, I'm not good at this. This is an awful experience, right? Because it was an awful experience for me because I was feeling a lot of embarrassment. And I wanted to continue doing it, but it's just the intimidation of the other people. Like, other people were better than me, right? Because they, they've done the lessons and they were going so fast and I couldn't keep up with them. And we were just sitting on the sideline, just watching everyone roller skate and be awesome at it. And there was a point where I wanted to cry. Like, I was holding back tears for the sake of my life. I was holding back tears. And I don't know if he saw it, but he was like, "Well, we could go ahead and leave if you want." I'm like, okay. So we left. And I think it was just the idea that he wasn't mad at me because I wanted to leave.
Yeah.
That I wanted to stop trying. Because, it's roller skating. No one's going to be perfect. Like, I thought I was perfect, but then clearly I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Yeah. But I guess it's just that being a safety net and letting me know that, you know what, it's fine. We tried it,
Yeah, we touched it. We did it.
We tried it. We did it. We're good. We could take lessons, if you want to. But it's not an awful date. It's not something that I'm going to look back on and say, "Oh my God, that was the worst date ever."
Yeah.
Right? So that wasn't. Those are my stories, my anecdotes.
So the next question. How has building and maintaining mental fortitude impacted other areas of your life, such as relationships, work, and personal growth? So since you've actually started working on it, have you seen any changes?
No.
Do you feel any differently?
I think because it's just something recent that I want to work on, I feel like I have a lot more to go through. Like, I don't feel any changes right now. And recently I've been in like a slump because I'm just thinking about my finances right now and what I could do. And
I also think you're overthinking it a lot.
I do. And that's a thing I want to, like, I don't know.
You're working on it.
I don't know how to,
let go and let God.
Let go. Like, I just wish that I had no worries. Like, if I had a sugar daddy, that would help. But that's not going to solve my problems.
It could. Like, it could.
Well, yeah,
solve
it
some
could.
of them. But no, I get it. But I do think that you've expressed to me anyways that you felt a lot of support that you didn't in the past, because I think you've allowed yourself to be more open when you needed help with people, and you're getting that reassurance from your support system.
Yeah.
For me, the same thing. I rely a lot on like interactions with people to kind of build my trust up with them, and so that I can feel that the power of my community help power me through when I'm feeling a little self-doubt. It's comforting to know someone else can take over if I'm too tired. So last question.
Oh, okay. Last question. Is there any advice or guidance you would give to someone who's striving to develop their mental fortitude and resilience?
Persistence and consistency.
I think consistency is better than persistence.
I think you need both. But I think they both kind of play into each other.
Because I have a hard time being consistent with, especially when it comes to my own well-being.
Yeah.
So I think that one is important to me, is consistency more than persistence.
And maybe like I'm thinking of words now, like confidence, like having the confidence to keep being persistent every single time something happens. I think honestly, the theme of it has been consistency, just building it up over time. It's like a muscle. You have to just keep doing those reps over and over again, and maybe do it a little longer this time, or be a little more open, or be a little more deep this time, and just doing it over and over and over again. And eventually it'll become second nature. I mean, that's how we got the bad habits.
Right? But the bad habits are so hard to get away from, but so easy to do.
Yep. So easy to get in the habit of doing and so hard to overcome. So that was a fun discussion. And just to kind of wrap it up, I wanted to do an according to therapyaid.com. Here's a couple questions to ask yourself when dealing with negative thoughts and building your resilience. Abby, hit us with the questions.
All of them? You want me to do all 6?
You can do 3. I'll do 3.
Okay. Number 1, is there substantial evidence for my thoughts? Number 2, is there evidence contrary to my thoughts? And number 3, am I attempting to interpret this situation without all the evidence?
Those are actually really good questions
I
to
know.
ask. Number 4, what would a trusted friend think about this situation? Number 5, if I look at the situation positively, how is it different? And number 6, will this matter in a year from now? Or how about 5 years from now?
I think number 6 for me.
Yeah.
I like, will it really matter? But it matters.
In a week.
But it matters to me right now.
Yeah.
'Cause it's on my mind.
Yeah, it's in the forefront.
Yeah.
So this was a fun, interesting episode. I felt like we talked a lot more than we thought we were on this one.
Yeah. I'm glad that we actually had, I'm not going to say actually had substance, because that's going to assume that our previous episodes didn't. But I'm glad we were able to.
Because we didn't really know where we're going with it.
Yeah. Honestly, this was all improv. Yeah.
Because we didn't know, like, because we're like everybody else. We're just trying to figure it out and like talking through things and trying to be a sounding board. So I felt like the discussion went really well, and it kind of helped us kind of peek around and see some things about ourselves, some interesting things. So next week, or next episode, not next week, it's going to be in 2 weeks from today, we're going to talk about therapeutic writing.
Ooh.
So I'm really excited about this one. We're going to have a special guest on.
Yeah, I'm excited too, because I have, you know what? I'm going to read from my diary when I was a teenager.
Oh, I'm excited.
I know.
I need to find the Adventures of Chocolate Thunder and Cheese and Crackers in my garage, and we'll read through that too.
You need to. We need to psychoanalyze it.
Yes. what is it, 7th or 8th grade self. We need to psychoanalyze and figure out what this person was, what the point of.
Yeah.
Because I think it's definitely power. There's power in writing, and there's a therapeutic essence to it that people should really evaluate and try. It was weird for me at first, but once you kind of get into it,
it flows.
Flows naturally. Once you find your medium in it. So next time we'll talk about that and kind of give you guys some advice and talk about our own experiences and how we've been therapeutic with our writing.
Yes.
So I'm super excited about that. If you want to support our podcast, please like, comment, or subscribe. We do have a discussion board up. We do have Pinterest up. We have whatever you want to do to communicate. We more than likely have it. So we're super excited. If you guys have any topics that you guys want to talk about or anything that you want to hear us comment on, please let us know. And until next time, I'm Mary.
And I'm Abby.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.